Hi, everybody. This is Stephanie Krubsack with the Purevant Living podcast, Women in Wellness. With me today, I have Morgan Kelly Huber, owner of Morgan Shea Health Wellness. Morgan earned her Bachelor's of Science at UW-Milwaukee in athletic training. Over the years, she has worked with a variety of sports and athletes from the recreational to the professional level. Morgan is certified in both myofascial decompression, cup therapy, and dry needling. She holds a certification with the American College of Sports Medicine as a personal trainer. She is a martial artist and an avid yoga practitioner. Her inspiration to open a sports medicine private practice came from a desire to provide a higher quality of care after working in sports medicine for years and realizing how broken the healthcare system is. She practices a holistic approach to medicine, taking into account the body as a whole and not just treating the symptoms. So thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
So let's get started with how we first met.
Right. So Stephanie and I met actually through a female entrepreneurship group in Milwaukee called Boss Ladies Milwaukee at a goal setting / 2020 intentions meeting that I remember. And heard her talking about what she does and about her podcast. And I feel like a lot of our beliefs and goals and vision aligned. So that's how we met.
Yeah, and that was a really great session. We kind of went through, it was like right after the new year, and we talked about what our goals were for business and personal, and it was definitely a great collective of women there that day. So
Right, definitely a powerhouse group.
So tell us a little bit more about Shea Health and Wellness.
Yeah, so my business originally started as, like you mentioned, a sports medicine private practice, mostly me wanting to be just self-employed and being able to treat patients and clients the way that I wanted to give a high level of quality of care. But over the past 8 months or so, it has really more evolved into me wanting to create more of a collaborative space for health and wellness professionals and for my clientele. So everything from sports psychology is available to athletic trainers with different skill sets, including myself, and hopefully eventually a physical therapist, a registered dietitian, just the whole 9 yards. But right now we mostly focus on musculoskeletal conditions, orthopedics, so body aches and pains, injury consultation, and then from those assessments we develop a treatment plan, which can include anything from dry needling, cup therapy, corrective exercises, sports massage, etc.
Definitely a lot that you cover. So.
Yeah.
And I know I just had a mini myofascial decompression cup therapy session with you. So that was really interesting. So you want to talk more about how what you do differs from general cup therapy? A lot of us are probably familiar with that, where you have the cup on your back, let's say, and it pulls the skin, might leave a red mark. But yours is quite different, I found.
Yeah, so it still leaves a red mark. Depending on the person, everybody's body is different. But it differs from traditional cupping in that traditional cupping is very Eastern medicine based and usually follows the body pathways, meridians, and they do normally leave it on for a prolonged period of time. And it is a passive treatment as far as I know. But the type of cup therapy we do here is a very active-based cup therapy, and it has more roots in Western medicine. And the goal of it is to help increase the fluid and the mobility of the fascia and the connective tissue and all the restrictions with it. So the main difference is that it's an active form of cup therapy that might be paired with exercises, with movement, and neuromuscular re-education versus just leaving the cups in one spot.
Yeah, and I noticed how, Morgan had me doing some yoga moves, kind of some bending from side to side, and she would slide the cups around. So it's a really interesting sensation. Like, I wouldn't say like a good pain, but not even really pain. I don't know, like a good stretch. And I felt really great, and kind of like my back opened up after. So very, very interesting. So I definitely like what it can do. And for those of you not familiar with myofascia, I mean, you probably do a better job of explaining this than me, but it's like the white connective tissue underneath your skin that kind of holds everything together. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, so it's connective tissue in the body. It goes over your muscles, but there's also fascia in between the layer of muscles. It's not just on top, it's really throughout your whole body, and it does truly connect everything together. So it's something that if it's not addressed, it can provide a lot of restriction in the body. So it's an exciting thing to be able to work with.
And is it true that, like, for example, if you're dehydrated, your fascia is going to become like tighter too, and it won't let you kind of move as much, and kind of all connected that way?
I would think so. I don't know the exact research behind it, but I do know, like we discussed, that our body is like a bag of fluid. So if it's dehydrated, you can imagine what that's going to do to the tissue around it too. And just by doing the cup therapy, it does improve the mobility and the movement and decreases the density and viscosity of that fluid that's between all the different layers of connective tissue.
And I know you were explaining too that, like, when the cup is over your skin, it should be like a dome-shaped circle. But if there's like divots in your skin, it's meaning that the tissue is not as like elastic as it should be, correct?
So the dome shape is definitely the healthy tissue, but when you see the divots or the porous tissue, usually that means there's an increase of density and viscosity of the fluid between those tissue layers. So it might not be the tissue itself, but if you think of it as like a book and there's all these layers of tissue, and the book is kind of like your body, I guess, that if you wet it and those layers get stuck together and they're not gliding, that's kind of, I guess, how you would imagine those restrictions and divots that you see. So the cup helps separate those layers and allow that movement to happen again.
So interesting. Maybe we'll share photos. I'm not sure if I decided yet, but it's interesting to see.
But there's plenty
Definitely.
on my business social media for people to look at.
Okay,
so.
Perfect. Maybe we'll do that. We'll direct them to your site.
Yeah.
Especially my back. Probably have some marks tomorrow, but that's totally okay and totally normal. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about maybe some of the top ailments that you're treating right now, like for clients?
Yeah. So with the cup therapy, a lot of my clients come in with limited neck range of motion is probably one of the top things that I see. And especially with the isolation and the pandemic with quarantine, I'm seeing a lot of like forward neck posture, tight pectoral muscles, just the whole tight anterior chain. So using those cups on all those overactive and tight structures. So I do a lot of cup therapy on the pectoral region, the upper traps, hip flexors, and really trying to help those overactive tissues so that we can strengthen the posterior chain and the backside of the body to balance it out.
That's really great. And it's nice that everything that you do is like non-invasive and doesn't need surgery. So I definitely like that approach.
I'd say the dry needling is semi-invasive.
I suppose.
But the cup therapy is definitely completely non-invasive, but needles would still be considered less invasive than getting a surgery per se. So I would say it's not completely non-invasive, but it's also more conservative and more holistic based than going in and operating on something.
Do you want to talk about the difference between dry needling and acupuncture for those that don't know?
Yeah, so that's another area that's pretty interesting. Dry needling is technically a branch of acupuncture, even though it's not acupuncture. So it's really the difference lies in the way the needles are applied and the training behind it. Again, acupuncture is more Eastern medicine based and uses a lot of the meridian system and the different pathways of the body. And dry needling is more Western medicine based. So it's a Western medicine based application of the needles, and we're only targeting the connective tissue, the muscle, the ligaments, instead of, let's say, if you're doing acupuncture, you might target someone's liver by putting a needle in one of the meridian spots that I know nothing about. So I would never call myself an acupuncturist. I would never claim to know any of their training. It's a completely separate education.
Yeah, and I guess for listeners that want to understand kind of what it feels like, I've had both. And acupuncture, it's like these different meridians and parts on your body. It might be on your ankle when they're trying to help your digestion. It's really interesting that it might not be in the exactly affected area they're trying to treat. And it's like kind of like a small pinprick. Whereas dry needling, it goes like a bit deeper into the muscle. And it's like these involuntary twitches, which is not painful. It just feels really weird. I mean, sometimes.
Right.
So,
And it's definitely a misconception that you don't need a twitch for it to be beneficial.
okay.
So a lot of, I feel some clinicians that did get dry needling training maybe a while back kind of had that thought process
Okay.
of, oh, we need the muscle twitch to elicit some kind of benefit.
Oh.
But actually with a lot of my clients, I really only get those twitches in the bigger muscle groups just because it's a large muscle group. But when it comes to needling like the superficial knee, other superficial areas, I don't always get a muscle twitch, and that's okay. So
Well, that's good to know, because I guess I assumed too that you needed that twitch to know you were having that effect.
Nope.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. Very great. So what are some of the other initiatives that you're working on?
So I'm actually very excited. During this quarantine, I have been developing a recovery program that I'm very excited to launch. I'm still working on the logistics of it, but I do have compression boots, the Normatec compression boots, which help with lymphatic blood flow return, blood circulation, muscle recovery, muscle pain, fatigue, all that good stuff. So those are going to be included in it, but also I'm working on developing some protocols that you can do yourself when you come in for that recovery program, just depending on the body part, in addition to having foam rollers available, a muscle gun, and other types of recovery equipment.
What's a muscle gun?
So it's percussion therapy.
Okay.
So I don't know the best way to describe it other than it literally looks like a handheld gun with a little attachment on the end, and you turn it on, it vibrates. So it's
okay.
it's like a percussion piece
Mm-hmm.
that you apply to different areas of the body. So I guess it would almost be described as like vibrational therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So I find, you always think a lot of things could be connected to your nervous system in some way. So even if it's not creating a physiological change, it could be creating some kind of neurological change to help with your pain symptoms or your muscle pain, fatigue post-workout, that kind of thing. It feels really good.
I know I have heard about that kind of muscle recovery too, like those boots and things. So that's basically like if you've done a hard workout and
Right.
you're sore, it helps you recover faster. That's the how it works, or
Yeah, I would say that's the goal, the exact physiology behind it. I think if you think about it as like your muscle has a secondary muscle pump. So when you're working out, you're exercising and you're moving around, your muscles actually help your lymphatic system function. They aid in it. So these boots work in a segmental fashion where instead of just filling up with air and just staying compressed, they actually compress in a segmental fashion starting from your foot all the way up to your leg. So it helps with the direction of blood flow and the venous return. So it's I guess non-medically saying helping push all the bad stuff back where it should be, but yeah, it's very cool stuff. I've used them on myself post going on long distance runs, and I wouldn't say it magically cures the muscle soreness, but I feel like it does almost accelerate the healing time and shorten the period that you have the soreness for.
okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because they say that if you work one muscle group, you let it rest for 2 days, and then okay.
Yeah, it's not like you jump in them, you get out, and all of a sudden you you feel 100% better. That's it. I feel like with any treatment, if that's what happens, it's usually not a long-term solution anyways. So
And kind of back to like the different solutions that you provide. Like for example, if you're getting cupping or dry needling, or sorry, myofascial release, not cupping per se, but how often do you typically see patients? Like once a week or a couple times a month, or what? Is it probably dependent on the person?
it's completely dependent on the person and their pain level, their level of impairment. Some clients I see every week, I'd say is the most frequency lately that I've been seeing people, and other people might just come in every month, and that's more of like a maintenance session. And they're just getting a tune-up and maybe getting a couple more exercises to do at home. But with the cup therapy and the needling, if we're being aggressive, I'd say I see them usually once a week.
That makes sense. And then, yeah, maybe taper off down the road if you're kind of seeing the benefits of it and recovering. Very cool. Yeah, we'll see how I feel after today, and I'll probably be back.
Right.
So yeah, I know it feels great already, just like instantly.
Mm-hmm.
I came in with back pain, and now I'm like, I feel better. Like that's kind of crazy to me. So
It's pretty amazing. There is some immediate results with it. And then we just want to pair that, like we discussed, with corrective exercise to work on the long-term solution. Because even though it feels good in the short term, if you don't address the root of the problem, whatever it is going to come back.
that's true. Yeah, and if you're not, exercising, staying active after it's like corrected, or it's gonna just go back to the way it was, right?
Yep.
So that makes total sense. So is there a specific event or experience in your personal journey that led you to the path that you're on today?
Yeah, it's interesting. I never really pictured myself as an entrepreneur. I really only imagined myself in healthcare all throughout college and when I graduated, and pretty much the whole 6 years after college that I worked in sports medicine. And it wasn't till I'd say the spring of last year of 2019, I was actually at my gym that I do personal training at. And I was using a muscle gun on myself, the percussion therapy we talked about. And I just remember jokingly posting a video of myself, treating myself with it, and someone messaging me and a close friend of mine asking me if they could pay me to use it on them. And I was thinking, I don't see why not. And then it just kind of dawned on me, I don't know why I'm not charging for these services that could be benefiting people, because even being at my martial arts gym, I'd always hear people complaining, my shoulder hurts, my knee hurts, this hurts, that hurts. And just thinking, I really wish I could help them, but there's no way for me to do it without just giving free advice, because I didn't have a system set up. I didn't have a business set up. I was working a corporate job. And it just kind of, a light bulb went off. And then I started looking at office spaces, and at the time I was seeing a travel client that I was going to once a week, but I didn't have an actual office space. We were just doing a weekly stretching session and a little body care, and it just kind of snowballed from that. So it's crazy how one little idea or one little moment can really just take off.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've been in business not even a year yet, right?
Yeah, I think it's around 8 months now. So
Okay.
I officially opened my office doors in August, but I would say I probably only had a client or two when I first started. And it took a long time to really get a consistent clientele base, but I did count up my files the other day of how many people have just been through the doors. And I think it was around 50 or 60. So
Wow.
from, one or two when I opened, if that, to 60 people that have been through the doors, it's a pretty great feeling.
Definitely, yeah, that you're helping that many more people,
Right.
and hopefully they're referring their friends too, and it keeps growing.
Right.
So very neat. So what are some of your short-term and long-term goals to improve wellness in women's lives, and I guess, anyone's lives in the community
Right.
as well?
Well, as we discussed, as far as women goes, sometimes I feel as a woman it might be hard to find a healthcare provider that you're comfortable with, or even a healthcare provider that you feel understands you as a woman and just a woman's body overall. So I like being a resource for women for that in the healthcare community. But overall, I also just really short-term goals is continuing to provide affordable and high quality healthcare in the community that might otherwise not be accessible with, how the medical system, it's turned into a big business with insurance and billing, and it's kind of a headache. You want something looked at and you end up paying God knows how much money just to get it treated. So with my business, it's very nice. It's a cash-based system. We do accept HSA and FSA, but as far as insurance goes, the reason we don't deal with it is because when you're working with insurance, you can't treat your patients and your clients the way you want to. You have to abide by their coding, their time, like their services and everything like that. And then your billing gets all wrapped up in that scheme. So also providing general awareness of the athletic training profession to the community, as I feel it's very underrepresented in a private practice setting.
That makes a lot of sense. And you also serve the MMA community too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that is my personal passion and specialty. I am a martial artist myself, and I have been for the past few years, and I just really have grown to love the sport. And I've noticed there isn't really, I know of a chiropractor and a couple doctors, but as far as a treatment resource, there isn't many people for martial artists that they can go to that understand the sport and are able to treat them based on the injuries. So I love seeing martial artists, and my goal is to continue to serve the MMA community, both short-term and long-term.
Sounds like a really great niche.
It is.
Definitely. And I know some other goals you mentioned, you had the whole kind of collaborative business mindset, like working with other entrepreneurs. And do you want to talk about more of some ideas around that?
So as I said, my business started mostly with myself and my clients in mind, but now it's turned into this collaborative space that I can really serve not only myself and my clients, but other healthcare providers. And how can we all collaborate in order to provide the best care and the best resources for the people coming through my office doors? So I am currently in the works of adding 2 more athletic trainers to my staff that will be seeing clients, and they all have their own personal set of skills and expertise different than mine, which is pretty cool. And then I also am going to be looking into collaborating with a PT, looking into, I work with a naturopathic doctor now. So just creating that circle of care, so when someone comes in here, they have access to all these resources and not just myself.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's really great. Now for the fun question. So what does wellness mean to you?
So wellness to me, I feel like this goes along with my business model pretty well, is health of both the mind and the body. So you can't be in true harmony in the wellness world without both of those, because if you take care of, let's say you come into my office and you have knee pain, and we fix your knee pain, but you still have a psychological component to that that's preventing you from running, then you're still going to have knee pain. Which is why we have a sports psychologist or sports psychology major on staff now to address that. And then in addition to that, just being very into meditation, mindset, yoga, just addressing your overall mind and body connection, I feel like is very important when it comes to overall being a holistic and a healthy person.
I think that's very true. It's all connected. So if you have a positive mindset about your recovery, you'll probably heal that much faster. So
yeah,
that's great. And kind of back to what you said about having a collaborative network of different experts in different areas, I think it's great. So you come to see you, but then you can refer them to other resources to help them fully recover. So really great concept. So what is one wellness ritual that you do daily or weekly that you'd encourage listeners to incorporate into their own lives?
So I'd say the thing I've been working on that's really helped me, and I have days where I fall off and days that I'm good at it. So it's not about being perfect, but just establishing a morning routine, because I have felt the morning is the most important part of my day because it can make or break my mindset and my attitude. So if I wake up in a rush and I don't have time to just take an hour, or sometimes 2, ideally, sometimes 3, the more I really get into my morning routine, the more time I want with myself. But I've noticed those mornings that I have that time, I proceed with the rest of my day with just such a positive mindset and attitude. It feels almost magical. So my morning routine, the simple version, is to wake up slow, have a warm glass of lemon water to help detox my body. And then I have like a greens powder mixture to get my body in alkaline and get my vegetables in. And then after that, I try to encourage my body to do some movement, whether that be a long walk, a little bit of yoga, just something to get everything stimulated and flowing, because it goes back to what I mentioned about wellness. It's that mind-body connection. So addressing both your mental wellness, but also your physical wellness, and just pairing that together before your day gets going is kind of what I would recommend.
And what is your 3-hour version? We're curious.
My 3-hour version. Whew. So it always involves the lemon water. I've found that's something I always do. But my 3-hour version would probably include the lemon water, the greens, my supplements, a nice long meditation, probably an hour of yoga before I eat anything, and then making myself a really large breakfast because I've found that cooking is very meditative for me. So
I would agree.
breakfast itself would probably take me like another half hour to make, another like 20 minutes to sit there and eat it slowly.
What do you make for breakfast usually? Like, what's your go-to healthy breakfast?
Well, I am vegan for the most part. So anything from avocado toast to tofu scramble to black beans on toast, vegan pancakes. I love food. So I wouldn't say I have like a limited breakfast. Pretty much anything plant-based falls under the window of opportunity when I'm eating. But all that together, and then I really like reading too. So if I have time, I like to spend some time reading, and all that together, if you move slowly, it's amazing how fast it can go by. And I'd say the one other thing I really enjoy doing if I have time is a nice long journal entry to reflect on my thoughts and address any little things that have been nagging me at the back of my mind.
Do you create like to-do lists too, or more
Yes.
like for the day?
So I do what's called bullet journal method, and I carry this little notebook around with me everywhere because it serves as my journaling, my to-do list, my calendar, and it's just blank pages, and I found it suits me very well. So what I'll do, and it helps clear my mind, is I'll create a whole bullet list of things that I want to get done. I don't call it a to-do list in my journal, but they're just little dots. And if I accomplish it, I exit. If I don't, I make a little arrow and move it on to the next week or the next day. So I like to take an inventory and see what I've gotten done, see what I have still to do, instead of a traditional planner. You'll have it stuck in a certain week, like your to-do list, and then you feel bad because you didn't accomplish it. But with this, I just move it over to the next page without feeling entirely guilty about it.
Yeah, that's smart, because sometimes we are a little too ambitious, I think, with our
Right, you
to-do
add
list.
too much on your list, and then you
Yeah.
look at it like, I only got one thing done. But if you have it in a blank notebook, the nice thing about it is like, okay, I don't have this done, but it's okay because I can move it to the next day. And just being accepting of yourself and being accepting of what you can get done has been great for me, especially as, I don't like the word perfectionism, but I definitely have that mindset, and I try to work with myself on it. So
Yeah, it's definitely a learning process, isn't it, as a business owner, where you feel you can't make yourself feel guilty for not finishing your to-do list, because some days you're just like doing the small things like paying bills or organizing meetings, or you're like on calls all day, or it's interesting how fast the day can go.
I feel like as a business owner too, sometimes you create more in your to-do list that's even really necessary. It's almost like we create busy work for ourselves, but sometimes you have to step back and realize how much of this is actually necessary and how much is this me being overproductive. So I try to look at my list, pick 2 or 3 things that are going to make me feel the most accomplished. And then if I get those done, then I can tackle the more little annoying tasks that I've seemingly created for myself.
That's actually really great advice, because I know personally I find myself getting the small things done that are not as important when I should be tackling the bigger to-dos. So
otherwise
very
you feel
interesting.
like you're in this forever universe of having to do things.
That's true, and you're just reaching for like the low bearing fruit, right?
Right.
when you need to be going to the very top of the tree and finishing that first, really. So
Right.
it's interesting.
We create busy work for ourselves. That's what we are. We're just busy bodies.
Yeah, it's like the new word, the new go-to excuse for anything. I'm busy.
Right.
So, but you have to make time. So
Definitely.
So are there any books or podcasts that you'd recommend?
Yes. So I tried to limit this to health and wellness because I love reading. So I think I'd have a book recommendation for pretty much anything. But as far as health and wellness, I really liked, recently I've been reading Taking Charge of Your Fertility. So this is mostly for women. However, I feel like if men read it, they could definitely earn some bonus points with their girlfriends or potential wives or dates. But essentially it talks about fertility awareness method, and I know a lot of women struggle with different birth control pills, implants, all that stuff, and it can be very toxic and hard on our bodies. I was on birth control since I was 16 and actually recently got off of it probably about 8 or 9 months or so ago. And I really had to relearn my body. So this book definitely helped with that a lot. And it just helps you explore a different alternative to how to take care of yourself as a woman other than just taking a pill on a daily basis. So that is a must read. And then on a diet side of things, or a general eating aspect, I liked How Not to Die.
Okay.
I don't necessarily think everybody has to be vegan. I'm not pushy on that, but it does talk about plant-based living. And even if you're not vegan, I think it's a great book just to open your eyes to what foods you can eat, on kind of like a food is medicine thought, and how you can heal different ailments and different diseases with certain types of food. So you don't have to look at it as a pushy vegan book, but more so as like a plant-based eating book and a resource for a holistic eating perspective on how to help your body.
I've not read either of those. I'm definitely adding them to my list.
They're both great.
I know that's interesting, the one with the woman's cycle. I'm actually reading In the Flow right now.
Okay.
You've heard of that one. So kind of similar.
Okay.
And I'm using natural cycles, which is, so it's like you take your temperature every day and it tracks your cycle. So you learn about your body, and it's really interesting versus the pill, which can have so many negative effects on your system.
Right.
So it's kind of taking control of it back from, pharmaceuticals in a way, but it's very interesting.
Yeah, the fertility awareness method in that book's very similar. The every morning basal temperature is actually one of the things it talks about. So
yeah, to know what certain times when there's like a temperature spike, what that means, and all very interesting stuff. And I feel like you learn so much as a woman that you hadn't known before. But it's not like this, mystical thing. It's very simple, right? So
yeah, it doesn't seem simple because it's not something we were really educated on growing up, but it's a really good area to re-educate ourselves on.
Definitely, yeah. So yeah, the second one sounds great too, the plant-based. I know I'm plant-based too, so definitely need to read that one.
But I don't want to discourage people that aren't plant-based away from it, because I feel like the vegan community and the plant-based community gets a bad rep in general for being overbearing.
Yeah, the stereotype of being vegan. That's why, I tend to say plant-based too.
Right. So that's why I say, even if you don't want to be plant-based, which I'm okay, I think eat what you want, but also here's a resource that you can still read and incorporate into your diet, even if you're not plant-based or vegan.
That's true. Or at least to try it maybe a couple times a week, or if you are having any issues, that it could be resolved by your diet, know. So it's really interesting stuff. Very cool. Any others? Are those the two main ones?
I'd say in the health and wellness world, those are the ones I can think of. Most of the other books I'm reading right now are either business related, personal development related, which are all great books, finance related, but I feel like for the purpose of this podcast,
that makes sense.
we should probably keep it to that, otherwise we'll be talking forever. So
what about any podcast recommendations?
So the most recent health and wellness related podcast I really enjoy is actually a fellow lady entrepreneur who we both know and is part of Boss Ladies Milwaukee. It's called Bright Side of the Moon by Paige Pitchler. And what I really like about her podcast is she does address mental wellness, coping strategies, trauma, meditation, but she also talks about sustainable living in general. Like, I listened to a podcast the other day episode where she talked about the fast fashion industry and how it impacts our, the ecosystem and everything like that. And I thought that was really cool, and I really enjoyed it. So
very interesting. Yeah, and Paige actually was episode 1 of this podcast. So really fun.
And I didn't actually know that before I gave that recommendation. So there's 2 recommendations for her already.
2 episodes with Paige and all of her as well. Very great. So what is your personal mantra or theme song that kind of gets you into a good state of mind to start your day, or kind of redirects you to that good mindset?
So I feel like I have a lot of mantras and things I tell myself. I've actually put sticky notes all over my apartment recently to get myself in a good mood whenever I think of a good quote or something I think is going to uplift me. But I think it always comes back to my personal belief is just that your mindset, your attitude, and your perspective really is everything. Because if you think of it that way, everybody goes through a tough time. Everybody has their good days and bad days, but it's really the ability to step back and say, what good can I take from this situation? Or what is the universe trying to tell me? Or how is this trying to redirect or guide me versus, this is a bad day I'm having. And thinking of it in that way as a growth perspective or something that's going to make me stronger or better is much easier than just flowing with that negative attitude. And the other side of that, I think that has helped me, is knowing that everything is temporary, and in both a good and a bad aspect. So just knowing that if you are having a great day and you're in a good mood, know that it's temporary, because it's going to make you appreciate it that much more. And then knowing when you're in a bad mood or you're having a bad day or a bad week or a bad month or a bad year, however long, that it's also only temporary and that it's going to shift. So
that's really good advice. And I feel I've been telling this to others is too recently, especially with COVID and many around us losing their jobs, getting laid off, that, look at this as a time to kind of step back, reassess what you have been doing for years. Maybe this is helping nudge you into a better direction. For example, if you're looking to start your own business that you're laid off, maybe now's the time to do it.
Right.
Take this as an opportunity, not as a setback. So
right. I know sometimes that can be challenging to do, and it definitely takes practice to get in that mindset of being able to separate your emotions from just your general thought process, because they're so deeply ingrained within us. But the more you practice it, the easier it is to do.
Definitely. And then kind of looking back at your past experiences where maybe you were completely heartbroken about one thing or not getting this job or something happening, but then you look later and you're like, actually, that was to my benefit that I didn't get that job or that didn't happen. So that's kind of interesting too.
That excites me because I actually, one of my favorite quotes, and I don't even know the exact wording of it, but it goes something like, you'll never understand the journey or the path from, it can only be understood from the end to the beginning, from backwards. So it can never be understood while you're in it, but if you rewind everything and play it in reverse, it makes complete sense, but you don't know it until you're actually at that point. So that's the beautiful part about life.
Definitely. Very interesting. So all good advice. So how can listeners reach you?
Oh, so many different ways. So I, of course, have my business social media at Shea like shea butter, Health and Wellness, all one word. So that's Facebook and Instagram. I also have a website for my business. That's just Morgan Shea Health and Wellness.com, which my email's on there, my business phone number, and then I also have a personal social media at Moshe, which is MOSHEAA.
Great. And we'll have links to everything on your podcast notes so people can find you and contact you and hopefully book a session with you, because you're great. And I mean, I'm feeling the results immediately, so I think that's kind of impressive. So yeah, thanks so much for sharing all of your info today and for your time. And thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you, Stephanie.